Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Doug Graham, author of the 80-10-10 Diet. And today, for Let's Cook Raw, I have a special opportunity to spend time with my dear friend, Chris Kendall. Chef Chris Kendall is going to add his unique view on our ongoing interview series. Welcome to the program, Chris.
Thanks so much, Dr. Doug. It's awesome to be here. Always blessed to connect and talk with you, and blessed to be a part of the show and everything that Let's Cook Raw is bringing to the table. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, we're excited about it, and we want to let people know beyond your chefing skills, just a little bit about, who you are, and maybe if let's start from the early days. If you had a health history, or what attracted you eventually to a raw diet.
Yeah, it wasn't something I was looking for. I'll tell you that. It wasn't something I ever planned for myself. I often even say when I was younger, I probably would have made fun of me, but that was then, this is now. I've been a skateboarder since I was really young. That was really one of the biggest motivators and predictors of where I was going in my life. But that led me to also being, not really working a lot, not making a lot of money. And by the time I was 17, I moved out on my own to go somewhere where skateboarding was better. And that kind of led me to eating pretty poor food, like poor as in it didn't cost much and it was poor in its nutritional value. So I was eating fast food. McDonald's had 39-cent hamburgers and 49-cent cheeseburgers on alternate days. And I'd get 10 of those and that'd be my food for the day, right? Otherwise I was eating lots of ramen or, just Mr. Noodle kind of cheap noodles, rice, milk, eggs, drinking, smoking cigarettes, stuff like that.
Hard to
And
even imagine.
It is hard to imagine now. Yeah, I used to, like, the first thing when I wake up, I'd be smoking BDs, which are little East Indian cigarettes or cigarettes. And almost every night it'd be 40 ounces and McDonald's all day, right? And I was that guy who would finish off anyone's plate, whether they're my friends or not, just because I was hungry and didn't make much money. Kind of a skateboard dirtbag, right? But I loved it at the time until I didn't. I started falling apart. My joints started hurting a lot. I was losing my motivation. I had chronic candida. I wasn't healing as fast, and I was just less happy in general. I started to get to a depressed place where I knew I needed to find something because I didn't even want to be anymore, and that was when I was around 18 and a half, living in Alberta, because the legal drinking age was 18, so I could drink more legally instead of just sneaking in. And it wasn't long after that I knew I needed to do something, so I found yoga. And of all places, Doug, I found a VHS tape, because it was that long ago in the late 90s. VHS Rodney Yee intermittent yoga tape in Walmart, and that changed everything.
Really?
Yeah, it really seriously did. I slowed down, started, breathing and stretching more and contemplating on a bit of a different angle, and started reading books on yogic philosophy. And it kind of talked about karma of food and how food impacts us on a physical, mental, emotional plane, right? And that really opened up my eyes, because I really just thought this was a great pleasure tube, just to stuff like Taco Bell down and like feel like a champ, right? But no, there was something else to it. So that led me to researching nutrition. I went to a used bookstore, and one book just jumped out, Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. And that book just tore me open. I remember reading that book, and it talked about food combining. It talked about eating fruit for breakfast, especially on an empty stomach. It talked about ditching dessert and just eating fruit first, and kind of outlined kind of a general raw and or vegan diet, right? And lifestyle, because it talked a little bit more about lifestyle. And so that was about 21 years ago now, 21 years ago. And since then, I've probably had about 5 cooked breakfasts. I took the principles of that on. I mean, I still took a while to go from complete meat eating sad to whole foods, vegetarian, vegan. It was about 3 years before I completely gave up any animal products and then went vegan. And I was looking to be a chef. Since I was little, I always loved making food. Like, I go on skateboard tours with friends, and I'd be the guy making things. And it didn't matter if it was like, with prepackaged processed foods. I was always adding things in and trying to make it taste better, And I found, though, very quickly in the very early 2000s that there was no vegan chefing schools, you know, that I couldn't find any. There was Le Cordon Bleu and one in one in Paris that had a vegetarian vegan component, but you had to still sample meat, you know, at least from my research. It just didn't seem plausible. So I went into school for a holistic nutrition course, a registered holistic nutritionist program in Vancouver, Canada. And at that time I was high raw vegan, basically trying to be raw vegan, but didn't quite understand how to do it. I'd read Nature's First Law. I read the Sun Food Diet Success System. And I kept on getting pointed towards raw food, but I just didn't know how to figure it out. So I was eating sweet potatoes and broccoli and the occasional vegan pizza and otherwise fruit all day, you know? And midway through my schooling, I went to a Taste of Health in Vancouver. And lo and behold, you were there, Doug. And, you know, you were the first like long-term, successful, thriving raw vegan that I'd actually met. And what you taught there, just, it shone, man. Like you were on fire. Like I couldn't deny that I was in front of, you know, like someone that I wanted to mentor under and learn more from, and that you were speaking truth. And yeah, that completely took over my journey. You know, that was just over 16 years ago now. And yeah, I went raw the next day, and I wouldn't say I've looked back. I've had a couple of rolls off the wagon, but for the most part, that's always been my aim. I could probably count on both hands the times I've fallen off in the last 16 years. So it's been a continuing journey since then, just growing and still skateboarding a whole heck of a lot. But this became a bigger passion of mine, and the last 11 years has been full time, just sharing this message, consulting and chefing and writing recipe books and hosting retreats, some of them culinary retreats, chefing for festivals. I guess it's now 9 years ago I went to your culinary skills week and health and fitness week, and sharpened my knife and my chef skills even more, and just continue to grow through that, you know. And I love making food. I've always have. So that's just been a huge passion. And, you know, now I'm almost 40. 2 years ago I was in a major motorcycle accident, and I'm already feeling better than I did in my 20s again, you know, just doing a lot of strength training and feeling really good. I'm skateboarding hard again, and I'm looking to make 40 my best year, probably in the last 15 on my skateboard. So
Fantastic.
it's a little history.
So that's good. That's really good. And some trinkets in there that we never heard before. So also, you have a very magnetic personality. You're really comfortable with people. You engage your audience very much, and it seems like everybody loves you. When you became at some point committed raw vegan, did you bump into social issues? How'd you deal with them? Did your family and you clash? What happened on the social side of things?
Well, you know, truthfully, most of the clashing probably was from me on my end. You know, I probably made more problems than I needed to, and I didn't even really make many, to be honest. But I remember, for example, like I read a book on digestion made easy and food combining and stuff like that, and it impacted me a lot. So I wrote on the cover, like, I will not talk to you until you read this, and put it on the coffee table, you know, expecting everyone in my family to read it cover to cover, and otherwise I wasn't going to talk to them. Well, I gave in first. They never read it, you know. And not unlike a lot of other people, I think in the first few years, especially veganism and raw food, when you really recognize the disparity between what you now know as the truth and what you're taught, that, you know, you're just like shook, and you're like, everyone needs to know this, and you might become like a vegan or a raw vegan evangelist, right?
Sure.
And I remember a couple times like walking down on a beach with a couple other friends, especially when you congregate with a few other raw foodists. I remember walking down the beach almost as if like, have you heard the good word about raw food? You know, and like that can rub people the wrong way, right? But I feel really blessed in that, you know, one, because of my skateboarding past and history, there was two things there. One, you know, I was already used to being a little bit on the outside, a little bit alternative, even looked down on at times and thought as a weirdo, you know, and so I was used to that, and I've always been pretty comfortable feeling a little bit different, swimming up the other stream, right? So when I went vegan, you know, as just over 17 years ago, that was like, people thought I was a weirdo. At that time, you didn't see much in the restaurants. I can only imagine, you for over 35, 36, 37 years, wherever you are now. So, I was already a little bit used to it, and it didn't bother me too much. And two, in my skateboarding, I did gain a little bit of attention. So getting a little bit of attention within raw food, I wasn't really off balance or weirded out by it, but I didn't really see too much from my friends and family beyond a little bit of concern. Maybe there's a bit of concern or amusement, like, oh, what's this new weird thing he's doing? This is just a phase that will pass, and it didn't, and it kept on going. And so 6.5 years in, my parents were like, get blood work. So I did get blood work, and my doctor was concerned at first. I came to get my blood test, and he was like, man, you changed someone's mind here today. He was smiling. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, best blood work I've seen in my entire career. He's like, your cholesterol was perfect. Like your blood sugar was stable. Your protein levels were great. Like everything looks good. Like I'm going to start recommending towards what you were doing, and it's awesome because I've went back to him, and I've had another 4 or 5 full blood panels and everything. And every time I go talk to him now, it's like, oh, I'm still eating a little bit of this and that, but I'm eating a lot more like this. So like the tables have turned a little bit, or we feel more like equals talking about different things and respecting each other's expertise, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
but
cool.
I haven't lost any friends. I've definitely had some friends that I purposefully only hang out with in certain circumstances and situations. And I've kind of shifted my focus to being like, let's meet to go skateboard, or come over to my house and I'll make dinner, or let's go up to a buffet, right? Like different things like that. And, it's awesome because, I'm sure just as with you, 16 years in now, I see more and more people telling me about the changes they've made and how I've impacted them, and
Nice.
I now have multiple friends. Like I'm out here in Malmo and I'm skateboarding with 2 raw vegan skateboarders all the time, right? It's like, it's pretty
Unheard
cool.
of.
Yeah.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
So that's a good story. And especially the fact that you're bumping into raw vegans, like that's something I didn't do a lot of in my first 16 years.
No, oh geez, 16, because I met you, Doug, I met you, and Tanya Kay was there, and correct me
Yes.
if I'm wrong. I think Brandon Brazier was there maybe.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe Robert Cheek, or not Robert Cheek, the bodybuilding.
Yeah, Robert Cheek.
Yeah. I think they were there. But then I met, you may remember her, Karina Honga.
Sure, she worked for me for a while.
Yeah, she's great. I met her very randomly. It was a pretty funny story, but very randomly, she hit on me. It was pretty funny.
Had she finished school yet?
No, this was like 2 weeks after Taste of Health.
Oh, okay.
I was working somewhere, and somebody is really funny. The desk person said like, hey, somebody left their number for you and like said they thought you're really cute. And I'm like, should I call them? I called them, and it ended up being her. And I called her. I'm like, hey, and like, she's like, what you doing? I'm like, I'm just sitting here eating 6 oranges. And she's like, weird, me too. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on this weird diet. I'm eating like tons of fruit. She's like, yeah, me too. I'm like, how long you been doing this? She's like, just over 2 weeks. So she was the second raw foodist I met. And I only saw her like twice, but then I didn't see another raw foodist for over 2 years. And, at that time there was no YouTube or anything. It was just your veg source board, and your support board essentially. And that was my, my solace, that and connecting with you on occasion.
Excuse me as I unwire before I tear wires apart. Okay. So, wow, Karina Honga. Yeah, actually, she helped me do some of the fact checking for the 80-10-10 diet.
No way. That's awesome. Yeah, she was a smart girl. I
hired her to be a fact checker. When you're new at raw food, the food itself is fascinating. The whole concept is fascinating. There's so much to find out about, and there's so many things you haven't tried, and that's very engaging. But as you say, you're getting almost 2 decades in. There's a million different things that could be still interesting, but I'm curious what you still find interesting. What do you get enthusiastic about when people talk to you about raw foods?
It's funny because sometimes I'll even say like, it's not something that I talk about too often, right? Like I could go days without talking about it and not think too much about it, because once you've do this for a while, the same conversations pop up, right? Like over and over, right? And similar questions pop over. But any time that I talk to someone who has genuine interest or who is new to it, I animate, I light up, I love it. I just feel so passionate about it, and especially seeing it's like seeing a young skateboarder, or it's like seeing your child or a young kid. It's like you want to pass that on, you want to help them out, and you see their eyes sparkling for the first time, and seeing new patterns and new ideas and new potential, right? It's like,
Sure.
because that's for me, it's a limitless potential, and it just makes such an impact and such a change. And really, when you see too, when your eyes widen, and it's like, it's not just for you, it's like it's for everything, right? It's like I can't think of any negative for a raw food diet, really, unless you're thinking in terms just of like myopically on one little issue of like, well, I can't eat this, well, you can have that if you want. It's just, if you're looking for this, then these are going to probably suit you a little bit better. And I really do love finding ways of making old favorites from raw foods that still taste good, digest well, aren't super high fat, or containing crazy ingredients that I would rather not put in my body, right? And so that's something that excites me too, because I just have a mind that when I see something, I immediately kind of vector into how I could do it raw, and usually it comes out pretty good. So I love making different cuisines and different foods, and sharing those with people, and sharing the recipes. I guess one other thing though too that I like is like, especially with 80-10-10, is just how it really connects with, science, experience, and nature. It's like the holy trinity, right? Like it really covers all bases, and some people come to me with like, well, what about this? And what about that? And it's like, well, let's look at that from as many angles as we can think about. Like, would we be doing that in nature? Does it meet the science, and what's the experience people have with it, right? It's like, that excites me as well, because it's common sense, and it's clear, and it's scientific, and the animals, they speak to us too by looking at the comparative physiology and anatomy and other animals like us. So that still lights me up, just because when you see people's light bulbs go, and I'm sure you saw my light bulb spring up when you first met me, it's like, it's a really cool thing to see.
Yes, it is. I agree with you completely. Can you share with us what we should be looking forward to in the future? Are you working on any projects? You got any plans, upcoming some things? What's
I do have a ton of stuff in the future. I mean, I have a whole recipe book series and some video series, and I recently finished a course, the Raw Vegan Lifestyle Success System, which I'm really excited to bring out to a larger audience, and to expand upon that. More courses. I want to do more courses in the future, and also I really do want to do more retreats. I've done 14 retreats, and most of them raw food, yoga, surf, adventure retreats. But I've also done raw food, yoga, culinary skills, and I've also done raw food, yoga, skateboard retreats. And as soon as travel and all that stuff is a little bit easier for more people, I want to do more retreats, and I really do want to do more specific raw food skateboard retreats. Because that's still one of my biggest passions, surf and skate retreats on the beach, or a cool beach city with some skateboard parks. And otherwise, just, more festivals and fun stuff like that. I just recently moved out here to Sweden to be with my girlfriend, Camilla, and it's a lot of fun. I'm loving Sweden. So just more and more the same. I've said many times, I have I'd say at least 15, 20 years of things planned, in my step-by-step program.
Yeah,
currently, and that will only add up and grow, I'm absolutely sure. And longer term future, I want to set up centers, but that's longer term future, and has to do with my charity. I set up the TRA Dream, a nonprofit, to go towards healing holistic retreat centers in the future. So
fantastic. Oh, I wish you every success with all of that. Whether it's in the raw movement, or in the health movement, or in your life in general, what interests you? What influences you? Who's been your favorite authors or big influences that you you could say, wow, this person really turned a corner for me, or this is what I love reading his work, or whatever it might be. Like, what are the other aspects of Chris Kendall?
Well, I mean, I've already said it once, but I will say again, I mean, you, Doug, honestly have been one of my biggest influences and mentors in my life. You definitely pointed me in a new direction, and I
Thank you.
thank you. Absolutely.
Sure.
Other than that, Bruce Lee has been a huge impact on me. I love all of his works, his philosophy and his way of life, and just his resolve and uniqueness, and just getting straight to it. His Jeet Kune Do is really, that's the essence of it. No style, just going right for it. He's awesome. I read a book, Artist of Life, and I've read lots of his books that are really good. Other than that, lots of different books on spirituality I really enjoyed. Spirituality, energy, whatever you want to say, whether it's the Four Agreements or Conversations with God. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was great. Celestian Prophecies, all the Don Juan books by Carlos Castaneda.
Sure.
Interesting stuff. I enjoy all of that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. I read a lot of fantasy and lots of Star Trek. I'm inspired by Gene Roddenberry and other, as I see it, they're kind of ahead of their time and pointing towards a brighter future where people care a lot more for each other, and don't care as much about wealth, and care a little bit more about like the embetterment of man, and all those kinds of things. I think they were visionaries, Gene Roddenberry and a couple other people like that too.
Sure. Your advice to beginners?
Take it easy on yourself. That'd be the biggest. Take it easy on yourself. It takes some time. As you've often said, we're slow learners. It takes more than a few hammers on the head from your own hammer, before you get it, and before you let yourself be okay with, taking time to get it too. So just give yourself a lot of credit, and understand you're undoing a lot. It might not only be your stuff. You might be undoing some of society and some familial stuff, and it takes a lot of healing to go through. So be really patient with yourself. And other than that, really focus on the fruits and vegetables you love the most, the ones you absolutely love. If you can't get your first choice, go for your second or third, but focus on the ones you love the most, and don't be afraid to eat until you need to push it away. I mean, you can see my six pack. You always can see my six pack. And every single meal I eat until I can't, until I'm like, okay, that's enough. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, maybe one more bite, this is the diet of abundance. It's beautiful, right? You can really eat your face off and still feel great and look great and be doing amazing for yourself.
Cool. Rozzy once asked me, what do I want printed on my gravestone?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you nor think about such things, but if we were going to try to encapsulate the message of Chris Kendall, what would be your message to people?
Well, when you first said about the gravestone, my first thought was, Chris made people smile, feel good, and love themselves more. That's what I would love to bring, to
right. Love yourself more.
Love yourself more, love everyone more, treat everyone, the golden rule, the thing that is right through the heart of every single philosophy and religion, right? Treat others as you wish to be treated, and recognize when people aren't treating you well. Usually it's because they've had a pretty bad day or maybe a bad lifetime.
Sure.
Take it a little bit easy on your brother and sister.
Very, very nice. That's most of what we hope to bring out, but I always want to ask, if you have anything else you wanted to say, or closing thoughts, or stuff we just never got around to, or what you were hoping to bring out to every audience that views your video, everybody that sees this interview. Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, we're here on the Let's Cook Raw. I think fittingly, it's about playing with food. It's like, whether it's the food or whether it's the lifestyle, like taking an easy, lighthearted approach where each little moment isn't the be all end all. It's not going to define everything. So just let it be, have fun, play with it and experiment. And, I mean, I find the kitchen can be a joy. A lot of times people get stressed out about it and worry about every single little detail and worry about it going wrong. And it's like, nothing has to be seen as going wrong. It's just another stepping block along your way of self-discovery and understanding what you enjoy the absolute most. And if you're just playing, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a recipe that isn't your favorite and you don't need to choose again, right? You can make it different the next time. And the reality is too, the fun thing about raw food is even when you try and make it the same, it usually turns out a little bit different. So enjoy playing it, enjoy every manifestation that comes from your hands and the bounty that Mother Nature gives us. And, seek to be gratitude as much as you can. It's a wondrous, fun, and wild life we're living here. So enjoy it as much as you can.
Well, Chris, Kendall, thank you for making time to be on the show, to have a really heartfelt interview, to let us inside your head a little bit. You're a wonderful person. I always enjoy spending time with you. I look forward to the next crossing of our paths for sure. And I'll give you a right up close and personal hug.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll accept it too. And I won't worry about passing it on.
That's fantastic. I love you dearly, brother, and thank you again for being on our interview show. Every blessing.
Absolute pleasure. To you too.
All right.
Great to see you guys.
Great to see you. Go to health, Chris.
Ooh, baby, I like it raw.